Hello and welcome back to the Atmosphere's Electric. There's Fran, hopefully feeling a bit better this week, and I'm Rich. How are you, bud? Feeling better?
Yeah, loads better, thank you. How are you?
Well, that's a different voice altogether, isn't it? You've obviously completely got through that now. Fantastic news.
Not sexy anymore.
Well, some would argue.
What a shame.
Some would argue both ways. Some would argue that you've always been sexy. Some would argue that you've never been sexy. But who am I to get involved in that conversation? With a beard as scruffy as this, I've got no leg to stand on, mate. Uh, let's start with a couple of things. Obviously, this week, Ballon d'Or. It's something you get involved in, interested in, or couldn't give a flying monkeys?
I was slightly interested in it just to see, obviously, who won it and where some of the other people. I was dreading Raphinha winning. I was thinking if he's winning a Ballon d'Or, there's something wrong with football. I was a bit surprised to see Dembele win it. I really thought Yamal would win it, but the one who I was gobsmacked with, I think he finished 14th, was Kvaratskhelia, PSG. Like how he finished that low down, and Cole Palmer finished sit. Like I thought some of the decisions were a joke, but yeah, Dembele had a good season, but it's just not the same level, is it? Messi's, Ronaldo's, those sorts of players winning it. It just feel like we fell off a bit.
And look, so just to be clear, I couldn't be less interested in it if you genuinely, I couldn't care less. Because the whole thing just doesn't make sense in my head as to how the voting, how do you even get nominated, then who vote, like not interested in it at all. Uh, it's definitely more of a like my son is all over it. He thinks it's fantastic. He wanted to watch it all from the get go, but I had no interest in it at all. But and like you say, it's about whether you won or not, or whether you won the Champions League. It tends to be someone that's won the Champions League, which again feels like, well, actually, as an example, you could argue what Harry Kane did at Spurs was far more impressive than what he did at Bayern Munich because he's at a team that dominates the league and he gets more of the ball. Whereas the scored amount of goals he scored at the bang average Tottenham is actually more impressive. You could argue that. So for me, whether you've won something or not shouldn't have a bearing. But you're right. The key point is that when you go through the annals of time, the drop off in names and ability was very stark for me this year. We're really starting to scratch the bottom of a barrel for me.
Yeah, no, I agree, and that's why I was desperate for Raphinha not to win it. And it's not that I dislike him as a player; he's a good player. But if he's the
Coming
best
across like you,
player in, if he's the best player in the world, then we've got a problem, haven't we?
but he's not the best player in the world. Neither is Dembele in reality, but nonetheless, uh, won the award. And how do you feel about obviously moving it on now? Because obviously, uh, this is the second week of European football, but they've kind of done it a bit differently, haven't they, this year? Whereas in the Champions League was all sort of last week, and this week is the Europa League and the Conference League. Uh, I've got to be honest, I'm not really enjoying this new way of working. I don't know whether they're going to do this throughout the whole season. I haven't checked, probably I should have, but I quite like it when you've got a week of European football and it's Champions League Tuesday, Wednesday, the other stuff Thursday, and then a week. I'm not sure about it, if I'm honest.
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't realise that they changed it until I sort of started seeing the schedule going Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Champions League. And I was thinking, why have they done that? And I just expected the other European games to be played on the same week. So I was like, that's just surely taking eyeballs off the other competitions. And then I realised that they'd scooted them down the road. To be honest, I didn't even care about the other European games. I watched the Champions League games, enjoyed that, but it's completely put me off the rest of the games. I watched probably 5 minutes of Forest yesterday, and I think it looked a pretty decent game, but I just wasn't interested. So, yeah, I don't think it's managed to capture my imagination of the other tournaments.
This is going to sound a little bit weird, so forgive me as the reference point. But so obviously there was some Carabao Cup stuff on last night as well, so I wasn't sure where to go. But obviously the Nottingham Forest game was quite interesting in terms of scoreline, 1-0 down, 2-1 up. So ended up spending most of the evening watching that. But actually, the way I reference the game is it was like watching a WWE tables, ladders, and chairs match. Like I've never seen a game where there's just bodies flying all over the place, smashing into people, like carnage everywhere. Like every 30 seconds, there was somebody else getting smashed into next week. It was a very bizarre game to watch, but I tell you what, Andrew's definitely changed that Nottingham Forest team already, isn't he? Like they are definitely a different proposition in a very short space of time.
So I only watched 15 minutes of that, and the one player who stood out for me was Elliot Anderson, and he looks like
Yeah,
he's flourishing in that system. He dominated the ball. His passing was superb. His dribbling was superb. Like you said, he's backtracking. He made 2 or 3 tackles where players went flying, like you said. And I just thought he looks tailor made for that system. And yeah, you can see the style is gradually changing. I think the worry on that is they still look a bit ropey at the backs, whether that's sort of coming in for Mange as well. You'd have thought that they'd have held that defensive stability a bit, but you're always going to get that when you bomb fullbacks on, aren't you? And you leave defenders exposed. So he just needs to get that balance. But from an attacking perspective, I think they're coming on leaps and bounds in a very short space of time.
And Chris Wood might find it difficult to get back into the team if uh, his replacement keeps scoring as many goals as he has, and it'd be interesting to see what he does. But again, Nottingham Forest, another game that they didn't win. So again, it's been a sketchy start for Forest. Obviously, getting knocked out of the Carabao Cup last week as well. So, he'll be looking for his first victory, and I'm sure they'll feel confident that it could come on Saturday's game, which we'll come to. Uh, Before we move on to the predictions, Fran, how did we get on last week? I'm definitely taking, but I am getting old, so my memory is going a little bit. But I'm pretty confident we nailed the Arsenal, Man City. We talked about a late equaliser or a late goal drama not being the best game in order. I feel like if the rest of it was a bit sketchy, we absolutely nailed Arsenal, Man City.
You nailed it 1-1. I said 1-0 Arsenal. But I think with the actual review of how we saw the game going, I think, yeah, we did nail it. But we both got 5 correct and we both got 2 correct scores. So exactly the same. However, the results that we had were quite different. So your 5 were different to my 5. So you stick them together, we got 10 out of 10, mate.
I like. Okay, Sales is good. Is that actually how it worked? Got all 5 separate, so we actually got all 10 right. Is that right?
A lot of so I got Liverpool Everton right 2-1. You got Forest 1-0, 1-all right. Leeds 1-0. You got obviously not correct score, but I got which were the ones that I got? I got Sunderland Villa 1-0. You had 1-0. So literally, like we had lots of variations where we ended up getting correct results.
Well, the one thing I've noticed this week, before we come on to them, is that like if you look at my 10 predictions, the total this week is only 1,713 to 1, down from the about 50,000 to 1 it was last week. So
Yeah, mine was massive last week as well. I was thinking, oh, and when it started off with the Liverpool, and I was thinking, oh, here we go.
here we go.
And then
Yeah.
ironically, though, there was 2 results that we both got wrong. One was Brighton Spurs, and the other one was Chelsea. That was our banker. So that went well. Which, to be honest, I think you can give that a bit of leniency, can't you, when the keeper gets sent off after 4 minutes?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it completely changed the game. Well, I think it completely changed the game because obviously it was so early in the game. And I've got to be honest with you, there was a point where I thought maybe we might see a game at Old Trafford called off because that rain was coming down such a whack that the pitch was starting to look like it was carrying some water. So I was thinking if this carries on, could be the first time in as long as I can remember that a Premier League game gets stopped for a waterlogged pitch. But
Well, yeah, it happened literally down the road, didn't it, at Blackburn against
yeah,
Ipswich the day
yeah.
before, and they were called off for a waterlogged pitch with 10 minutes remaining. So that sort of set the precedence. And I agree with you. I was thinking, oh, it could do. It's just happened.
Yeah, but like I say, Premier League's rare, isn't it, in terms of having that? But like I say, yeah, complete. And again, that was another one of those sort of crazy games that you just kind of had no idea what was going to happen next. It was all over the place, uh, out of character for Enzo Maresca, that's for sure. But a much needed win for Ruben Almarin's Manchester United, which is where we start this week's predictions as they travel to Brentford in the early kickoff. And not a very happy hunting ground for Manchester United historically. There's definitely been some famous victories for Brentford. Uh, Neither team with the bother of European football, so actually there's no kind of hangover from a travel. Uh, if we start with Manchester United, just because we've just been talking about it, do we take positives from the fact they managed to beat Chelsea, who are a very good team, who both of us thought were going to win comfortably, or do we put it down to the fact that they capitalised on the goalkeeper being sent off, and actually there's still more questions than answers? Well, how do you see that result? Because one result shouldn't really change all of our minds that much, should it?
I think it changes the complexion of the season for Manchester United, though. Like, if you would have had a defeat to their record, they would be well rooted to the near the bottom of the table. The fans would be very unhappy. So I think that changes the complexion of their season and how you look at how it's gone and the feeling around the club. However, like you said, you put the context of a red card into the game as early as it did, and I think you're still wanting a bit more from United to show a bit more, a few more patterns of play, to be a bit more resilient. But in general, I think it has to be such a huge positive they won that game because if not, he might possibly have gone.
Well, we spoke about it. We spoke about their 3 games, and then I think next week they've got Sunderland at home. So we talked about the 3 games into the international break as being the make or break for him. Which again, the more I think about that as a concept, does seems slightly strange because you do have to take into context who the three games are against. If the three games were against Manchester City, Arsenal, and Liverpool, as an example, you probably wouldn't expect the same result as if it was Wolves, Leeds, and Palace. Uh, so it does seem a little bit strange to be making those kind of things. But there definitely is still a question mark over the number 9, isn't there? In terms of, I thought it was a little bit harsh for him to be dragged at half time after obviously the Casemiro sending off. So actually, kind of Seshko was the first one to come off. The one person for me that I just think, because obviously going back to Brentford, is Brian Bremo hasn't really produced the form or the performances that he used. Do you think that's the system? Do you think that's the weight of expectation, the burden, or do you think there's something else going on? Because Brian Bremo was almost a guarantee for a goal every other game, wasn't he? Up until this season, where he seems to sort of running in cement.
I hate to say that I sort of called it as he was signed. I always thought he was a risk to be signed. He's only he's not played in the Premier League long, 4 years, whatever 5 years, whatever Brentford have been in, and he's not been a star for that long. He's developed, and his performances at the end of last season were phenomenal, and the whole of last season. But for the price they paid, he was a risk. And to come into a different team, a different system with the expectation of Manchester United, I always thought he could flop. Now, I'm not saying he has flopped. He's got a lot to prove, and he's early into the start of his new club. But I always thought that he could have the ability to flop because Manchester United is a different beast. You've seen so many people go there, and I've said it before. To me, the only people that have gone there in recent times have been massive personalities who have passed the test. There's so many examples of players coming up, going to Manchester United, and then just flopping. So I feel that he could be one of those. I think the Cunha, on the other hand, I think he's got a bit about him. He's got arrogance about him. I think he could flourish. He's that sort of personality. So give me the ball. And Bremo, to me, might be one who hides a little bit.
Yes, again, it's this old adage, isn't it, of actually the players make systems or the systems make players, and there's sometimes there's a bit of both. And I just wonder whether actually, I don't know. I just felt like when he was coming in from the wide positions, he had a bit more space, a bit more, And I know that Donnarumma made the great save. We could all be talking about a wonder goal he scored in the Manchester derby, but actually, you know, yeah, I just wonder whether that shape actually brings the best out of him as well. So and I feel like about quite a few Manchester United players is that I feel like the squad is actually a 4-3-3 squad, yet they're playing 3-4-2-1. Is my gut feeling.
Well, and Bremo is your very stereotypical left-footed right winger who cuts in off the right on his left foot. Arjen Robben-esque, those sorts of players. You can name loads of them. Mahrez, and he's having to tuck inside players on almost an inside 10, isn't he? Like, I don't even know if that's a position, but I've sort of made that up. But
That's fine. We can go on with it.
he's having to tuck inside and almost be more of a playmaker. Whereas for Brentford, he was an out and out winger who would run at his man. He'd occasionally go down the line, but 9 times out of 10, he'd cut inside. But that was also helped by somebody going round the side of him to give him the space to cut inside. It's very easy to defend 1v1 if you know that he's going to come inside, just show him down the line. But your fullback comes around and helps you out, and that doesn't happen in this system. Having Dallo trying to be your attacking cover, they'll just go give the ball to him. That's absolutely fine. We'll just mark you.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if they do find the way of getting the best out of Brian and Buemo, because obviously, again, he was the penalty taker, wasn't he, at Brentford as well? So actually, he's missing them as well. So actually, and that was the great thing about Vista, wasn't it? He scored those goals without taking penalties. So actually, with Bruno Fernandes being the penalty taker, he's missing out on those opportunities. And of course, Brentford on 4 points, which Manchester United would have been on if they didn't beat Chelsea last week, but they did. So therefore, they're not. I'm feeling a little bit more positive about Brentford, though. I know we can argue about kind of squad strength, squad size. Obviously, losing to Fulham feels like, although I think we both said that Fulham would win that game, so it wasn't a surprise to either of us. I think I definitely felt like Fulham were the favourites. I feel like Brentford are starting to be okay, and I feel like they're not going to be one of the 3 worst teams in the league. Is my gut feeling right now.
I still think they're in trouble, but I would agree with you. I don't think they're going to be one of the 3, but I think they're in the mix for it. I don't think the performance have definitely encouraged me, especially the performance a couple of games ago against Chelsea. That really encouraged me. I thought they were superb. The energy that they showed, they looked like the old Brentford, which I worried that they'd lost too many players, the manager, the style of play, all of that. So I am encouraged by it. I don't think they're going to be in the bottom three, but I think they'll be there or thereabouts.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's definitely a bunch of teams, isn't there, that's going to have a long season, and it's going to be a case of just chipping away and picking up points as you go along. And of course, the early kickoff. This one feels to me like it's normally the 5:30 kickoff on a Saturday evening. It feels like it's been that a few times, but being the early kickoff on Saturday does always throw open that banana skin that can happen. So, uh, all things considered, how do you see this one going Saturday afternoon, 12:30 on TNT Sports?
I have gone for Brentford 1, Man U 1.
Bingo bango, which is a new phrase I'm trying to get going. So have I. I've also gone for the draw. I think that is. Yeah, I think that's a set. All that, again, I'll say this regularly, which doesn't help anybody. I can see all three results happening. It wouldn't surprise me if Man United won or Brentford won. I just feel like that's a sensible place to land.
Yeah. And
Uh,
let's just throw a bit of sort of funny context to this. It won't happen because of the goal difference, but if Manchester United win, they could be joint second.
okay. Yeah, okay, yeah, because of the early kickoff as well. Yeah, okay, yeah, interesting. Uh, yeah, that would, I'm sure, make the Manchester United fans very, very happy. We've got Chelsea playing Chelsea reserves. Sorry, had to do it. Or Brighton playing Brighton reserves. I don't know which way around it is anymore. Chelsea host Brighton at 3 o'clock at Stamford Bridge Saturday afternoon. Uh, this one is going to be a very, very interesting game, isn't it, for a whole bunch of reasons. Firstly, stylistically, they both have very clear definitions of what they want their shape and their formation to look like. Obviously, Brighton are in a nice vein, bit of form, and beat Man City point against Tottenham, doing all right. Chelsea, obviously, at the back of that defeat. And again, of course, last week lost to Bayern Munich because so they're in need. There's a chance that Cole Palmer's injured. Came off with the groin. I tried to have a look earlier, and there's no sign that I can see on the Premier League website of when he might be back. So actually, this is another one of those games that could be any result, but it does depend on who's on the pitch, doesn't it?
It does. I wasn't aware about Cole Palmer. I think that's a massive miss. He seems to be the one player who's almost come back into his form of previous, and looks like he was carrying them for a few games. If I was being honest, um, I mean, I'll give you the result. I've gone for a 2-1 Chelsea win on the back. I just think home advantage. To me, Brighton have not impressed me this season. I think they're starting to look like they're on the decline, losing too many key players, struggling to replace them, which is a very difficult thing to do. Um, I don't know if they've got enough goals in them to hurt Chelsea, because I do think Chelsea will score.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously they're missing Hinchelwood, who's become, certainly a reliable Premier League football player. The new signing Maxim de Cupia is missing as well. Solly Marsh has been out for a while, it feels like. But the Chelsea list is starting to grow. You've got Palmer out, you've got Delac out, you've got Lavia out, you've got Badashile out, you've got Colville out. Actually, and again, my understanding is that Cole Palmer is possibly out. He definitely may be making a comeback. So actually, you look at that Chelsea team, and it's actually very young, isn't it? It's very inexperienced. There's not a lot of when you look at sort of Enzo and you look at Caicedo. Beyond that, it's a very inexperienced team, isn't it? It looks light on the ground considering how much money they've actually spent.
Yeah, like we always used to use the joke that Chelsea signed another 10 players, but you're right. There seems to be gaping holes in that squad, doesn't there? Where you're looking at some positions and players, you're thinking, how is that person in the squad? Why have they not got a right wing, a backup right wing? Not using that's just a position as an example, but there does seem to be holes in that squad, and I think it still needs a fair bit of surgery. Players out, players in.
Yeah, they're definitely not the finished article, are they? Again, Fafana came back last week, had to go off with a bit of a knock. Obviously, like I say, the midfield, the double pivot is as strong as anybody in world football, but it did cost them, 200 and odd million quid in Fernandes and Caicedo. But beyond that, I don't think they're getting the best out of Pedro Neto. Again, for me, that feels like a player that had other options and probably should have gone to a different club where he would have been more of the main man. Obviously, Esteval was harshly, but not his fault, sort of taken off early. I mean, the one thing that I found really interesting, and I don't know how much of the game you watched, but I thought his substitutions around the sending off and before half time and after half time actually were very peculiar. I thought he made some very weird decisions around that sending off from substitute point of view.
So I'll be honest, I only saw the highlights of the game. So I was, when you messaged me to say, "Oh, banker down," I was out, so I didn't see it. So give me the description on the subs.
Well, obviously the keeper came on and he took off Esteval. He then put on Tosin. So he went very defensive. He put on an extra defender for Neto. So after taking the goalkeeper, obviously swapping the goalkeepers, he then brought Neto off and put an extra defender on, even though he'd already taken Esteval off.
So he's
So
got no
actually,
attacking threat whatsoever.
so it became João Pedro just literally being up the pitch.
Isolated up front, yeah.
And even then, so like I was thinking, because they got back in the game, so I was thinking, right, go for it, come on, Chelsea, you can, there's definitely, because Man United started to get a little bit, but on 64 minutes, I'm thinking, bearing in mind he didn't bring Garnacho or Gittings on, which I was thinking this game is crying out for those two. He brought Tyreek, George, and Gusto. And now again, I don't know about the injury situation. Obviously, Reece James and although he stayed on, but Cucurella came off, so again that might have been yellow. But I just felt like the game was there to win and he kind of went with another kind of defensive strategy that just, I don't know, man. I just thought that maybe it was a sign that Maresca isn't quite, and you've said this before, is that if his system's working, he's very good, but when the system's not working, you weren't mad keen on him when the system didn't start to work, and maybe that was a sign that actually he doesn't have the flexibility within the system to make it work.
Well, don't get me wrong, he is a very good manager, so it's not slagging off him as a manager, but he is very much plan A, and when plan A is not working, do plan A better. Like
Yeah.
there isn't an opposite way of playing, like you change formation, you might go route one. There is none of that. And I think it shows in the squad as well. When you look at a lot of the players, like realistically, like did they need Gittins? But there is just one way of playing. If you've got Sancho, Gittins, Pedro Neto, they're all a very similar style of play. They've not actually got anyone who's a bit different. That somebody probably whips a ball into the box. They don't really put crosses in. It is very much drive at your defender and cut back the ball.
Yeah. But Brighton come off the back of, they will argue that they could have, should have been being 2-0 up at home. You probably should win that game. So again, they'll have a little bit of confidence. Like I said, they've already beaten Manchester City this season. So again, and again, I think actually, and this is going to sound a little bit like a backhanded compliment, but the biggest backhanded compliment I can give them is that actually there doesn't seem to be a huge amount of noise about the manager. They seem to have sort of fallen into a comfortable space where actually everybody knows what they're doing. They're on 5 points, a little bit up and down, but nonetheless, as you've kind of done with Manchester United, if they were to win against Chelsea, they'd actually go level on points with Chelsea, just on the cusp of Europe. So actually, we're now starting to get into that stage of the season where big jumps can happen over one game week. But you've already said that you see this game finishing. Did you say Chelsea 2, Brentford 1, Brighton 1?
Yeah, I've gone for Chelsea 2, Brighton 1. I just think home advantage would give them the edge, which is that result last week for Chelsea really stung me hard. I'm not that confident on them. I don't think they've been too clever.
No, and again for me, so if I was actually doing, let me phrase that's the wrong way. If I was looking at the best bet I could find here, it would be both teams to score. I think both teams will score. So I like your 2-1, and I'm gonna just in the interest of being different, because otherwise we're going to end up being the same on two things. I'm going to go Chelsea 3, Brighton 2. I think both teams. Yeah, why not? Let's go for it.
Good game.
It'd be Soz Lord at the 3 o'clock kickoff that we can't watch. Would be the most entertaining game of the weekend. Another game that I'm surprised to be honest with you is 3 o'clock kickoff is Crystal Palace host Liverpool at Selhurst Park. Now again, a couple of things to bear in mind here. Crystal Palace are playing European football tonight, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure that's tonight. And also, of course, they are still missing some players. So Ismail Sarr is still shown as being injured. Pina is still shown as injured. So actually, and again, we did talk about this last week in that West Ham game, sort of saying hold fire on your decision-making process until you see the team. And actually, when I saw the team, I knew that Crystal Palace would win. I had to kind of make a call here thinking they were going to be missing players. But Adam Wharton did play in, didn't he? So can you make a case for Crystal Palace to end Liverpool's unbeaten start to the season?
Yep, I've gone 1-1. I think Crystal Palace are a very good side and are continually underrated. I think they know how to play the system, regardless of whether some players are out. Some players will just step in and replace other players. They know exactly how to play the system. I think if I go back through recent history, Palace have been a bogey side for Liverpool. So, yeah, I've got this down as 1-1. I think this is Liverpool's winning run to the season coming to an end.
I need to correct myself. The Conference League starts next week in another change to the system. So actually, they don't play till next week. So there is no Thursday night football for them. I guess that makes sense because they would be playing on Sunday if they play Thursdays. That was pretty obvious in hindsight. Look, I completely agree with everything you said. I think if Crystal Palace were at full strength, and by the way, I'm saying full strength, including Eze. Like, obviously, he's still a big miss that I don't think they've replaced. Obviously, Pinner's not quite sort of up to speed yet. I just think that Liverpool will have too much. Now, obviously, there is the Ekatike issue of getting sent off at midweek that really annoyed Arne Slot quite rightly. I think that was one of the most stupid sending offs, petulant sending offs I've seen in a long while.
Well, he didn't even look bothered by it. When I can't remember, one of the Liverpool players went up and you seen him mouth say, "What are you
Frimpong,
doing? You're booked."
Frimpong, yeah.
Yeah, what are you doing? And he just didn't even look bothered. Like I'd have been fuming with that. If he'd have done it by accident, you can almost go, "Okay, I understand." Like mistakes happen, but he just looked like he knew what he was doing, wasn't bothered. Oh, I mean, it does just open up Isak starting though, doesn't it? It's not like they've not got a backup.
Yeah, but I think they're trying to protect him, aren't they? But like I say, I just thought that if ever there's a player that's playing for himself rather than the team,
Mm.
and again, there's been some. I did a bit of research with some people sort of that watched him quite a lot in French football, and they sort of said, "Well, that is exactly who the guy is." But in fairness, that's what's made him who he is as well, and that kind of thing. And I suppose Isak coming back and being left out for him is like I said, that's going to be the thing for Slot with those two specifically. Is how do you get them both in the team, or how do you keep them both at that level without annoying the other one? Uh, but yeah, I
Given
just
opportunity, isn't it? Now he's literally giving him the opportunity. And my worry from a fantasy perspective is I have Ekatike, and I think you've had him in since the beginning. Is Isak comes in, does he keep that place? And now you've got to try and figure out how you rotate three players to get Isak in. So it's frustrating from that perspective. But for Isak, it's a great opportunity. I know they were, like you said, they were trying to protect him a bit because he's not had a pre-season, but he'd be fit. He's been playing international duty. He'd be fit enough to go straight in there. It'd be fine.
for what it's worth, I've taken them both out and put Haaland in because I just think that I can't be bothered to deal with it. I just want Haaland is going to start every week. The way that Man City adapted, I think, is set up for Haaland. So I've actually removed him and put Haaland in. You think this score will be at Selhurst Park?
I've gone 1-1, but from a betting perspective, Liverpool at 9 to 10. I think that's a great price. Like you said, they are the better team, the stronger team by far. You probably expect them to win, so I think that's a great price. But I am going 1-1 because I think Palace are a bogey side.
Yeah, so I've gone 1-2. I think Liverpool just have enough. I think they will win the game. And being honest with you, if they continue just picking up wins, this season could be over very, very quickly because the rest of them don't seem to be able to string many together. And of course, they benefited from what we discussed last week as being the best result for them in both Man City and Arsenal drawing, meaning that's another 2 points that have been taken away from both teams. So, yeah, I think Liverpool are looking very good at the moment, even without looking very good, if that makes any sense at all. We move to Ellen Road, still at 3 o'clock on Saturday, where Leeds United, off the back of a massive win predicted by yours truly, host Bournemouth in what could be another really, really interesting game. Let's start with, because we did touch on Bournemouth quite a lot last week and gave them quite a lot of praise. And again, I think the way they adapted and kept a clean sheet against Newcastle shows even more promise of what Bournemouth could do this season. So I think, but Leeds 1-0 down against Wolverhampton Wanderers, making that comeback. That's a massive 3 points for Leeds, isn't it? That was a huge, huge win.
It's a huge 3 points, mainly because I think you pointed it out. They're now 7 clear of Wolves, which just sounds uncatchable, doesn't it? 5 games in to say that. I mean, touching on Wolves, they look doomed, but that's a huge 3 points for Leeds. So to beat the teams around you is exactly what you need to do. And if they can add a couple more results to that, they could end up looking very pretty quickly. And a lot of teams looking up the table at them looking uncatchable.
What this does, or what that does, i.e., beating Wolves, is it gives them a free hit at Bournemouth. Because actually, if they'd have lost last week, the pressure starts to build. It's like, we're at home, we've got to beat Bournemouth. Whereas now, they can play with a little bit of freedom, knowing that actually Bournemouth are a very good team in a very good spot. Bournemouth are fourth in the league, only lost once this season, first games against. No one expects Leeds to win this game. So even a draw now against Bournemouth at home becomes a really valuable point because of that win last week. It's almost the knock on effect of that victory becomes even bigger as you look through those kind of fixtures.
100%. That's the key, isn't it? As soon as you add a couple of wins on the board, you pick up your points, your draws here and there. It's bonus points, isn't it? Whereas if you're going into must-win games and you lose them, the feeling around the club, the fans, the own, like it just looks horrendous. So they've given themselves that buffer and that level of confidence now that they can pick up draws and it'd be good results.
And the good thing for Leeds is that scoring goals, 3 goals, albeit against, Wolverhampton Wanderers who have been struggling, we all know. But different types of goals. Obviously, wonderful free kick from Stack, who I listened to some Leeds fans before the season started, were talking to us about how amazing a signing he is going to be. Uh, so again, scoring different types of goals, obviously at home with the fans. You could argue that they should be favourites, but for me, I can't see past Bournemouth, who look like a very well put together team. Look like they understand the roles and responsibilities. They're not yet burdened by the pressure or the stress of playing 28 games under this system, which they did last season. Uh, so I think, unfortunately for Leeds, they're just catching Bournemouth too early in the season, and I see this being an away win.
I agree with you. I'm going to go one step further. I'm making them my banker. I think at 11-8, I think that's good value for a Bournemouth team that attack really well, and I can see Leeds being at home just leaving gaps and opening up quite easily. So I've gone for a 3-1 Bournemouth win, and they're also my banker at 11-8.
Interesting. Interesting. I'd kind of forgotten about Banker of the Week, actually, if I'm honest with you.
Well, I found it really difficult to look through, like with the exception of Man City at 1-6, which is just pointless. There was the rest of them are just a little bit risky, and I just thought Bournemouth in the form. I agree with you. Catching them at this time is just the wrong time.
Yeah, okay. I need to give some thought to that Banker. I'll come back to that. Yeah, it's a good point. I have got Bournemouth to win. Uh, I think it will be tight because Leeds, Leeds aren't going to make it easy. I'm going to go Leeds United 1, Bournemouth 2. Uh, which again puts Bournemouth right in the mix. Obviously that would actually potentially take them, depending on how the rest of the games go. Obviously Liverpool are playing, so it won't. But it could take them second in the league before the other teams play, which would be giddy heights for Bournemouth. And actually, I'm starting to see a pathway open up for a team to come into that top four based on how bad some of the other perceived top four favourites are playing. Whether that ends up being a Tottenham or a Bournemouth, I can see one of those teams actually making a real run at that top four spot based on the kind of weakness or perceived weakness of some of those other teams. Talking of one of them, Manchester City host Burnley. I don't think we need to spend too much time on this. I think we're both probably going to go with a home win. It's just a case of what the score. But I think it's worth touching on uh, what has happened at Manchester City for them to go from being a shoe into winning the title and everybody being favourites to we're almost not sure they're finishing top four. Like the way people talk about Man City, it's like they're I don't know. It's like they're Fulham or someone like they've still got a phenomenal squad full of people, full of amazing football players. What the bloody hell's gone on there?
I said it last week. I don't think they're in a title race. I said it before the season. The signings on paper do look good, but as an example, Shirky looks a good player, but he's not somebody who you'd like a Mo Salah of 2 years ago, where you go, these are the numbers they're kicking out. They're potential players, so they need a season, 2 seasons to get used to the Premier League, start kicking out numbers. A bit like what De Bruyne did when he first came. Like they're not signing those proven players, which they're not going to be able to. It costs too much money, but I don't think they're in a title race. I think the main thing that's happened to me to Manchester City is they've lost the fear factor from a couple of seasons ago. Teams would go to the Etihad or, at home, and they'd just sit men behind the ball, almost accepting defeat. And if you got out of there with a 1-2-0 defeat, you were happy. Now, teams are looking to sit in, but knowing that they'll hit them on the break and cause them problems. So I don't think, I've gone for a 2-0 victory, but I still think Burnley will cause them problems on the break. They'll go long, and I don't think they'll concede because I don't think they've got the quality. But it wouldn't surprise me if they concede on the break with some of the pace that Burnley have. Like I just think they've completely lost the fear factor. And same with Pep Guardiola. I think he's lost a bit of the fear factor and that magic that he used to have. Like they're not playing the same sparkling football. I thought it was quite refreshing to see them sit in against Arsenal. Like, I've never seen a Man City team do that, but when they've got the ball, it's not fast paced that it used to be, where it wowed us a few years ago. Like it is very pedestrian. And another word for that is boring.
I would say that the way that Erling Haaland blitzed past Gabriel wasn't pedestrian. He made Gabriel look very pedestrian. I thought
But
he
that
actually.
was counter attacking football, which
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
not
yeah.
employed in years, has he? Like it was very much, it was almost situational. They won the ball in an area of the pitch and away it went. But like, I don't think that was a coached sort of scenario. It was more a case of how they'd sat in and it just happened. But in general, the coaching there is keep the ball. Jack Grealish has suffered the most. keep the ball at all costs. Don't go by your winger. Recycle the ball. Let's get into different positions. And I think they're being overcoached.
So, with all that being said, Fran, I think we're both going for a home win. You've given us a couple of clues as to what you might be going for, but what do you think the final score will be? Man City hosting Burnley, 3 o'clock.
Yeah, I've gone 2-0 Man City, but I don't think it's as comfortable as say the bookies odds of 1-6 would suggest.
Yeah, I don't disagree, but I think the form that Haaland's in, I'm going to go 3-0 to Manchester City. I think they will be able to open them up. Uh, now, one of the most interesting games of the weekend for me is 5:30 Saturday evening, Nottingham Forest, with obviously new manager, exciting football we've already spoken about in Europe this week. Host Sunderland, who are doing some amazing bits and pieces, and again, even with 10 men, fought back to pick up a point. This for me could be anything. I don't know how you see this one go, but let's start with Nottingham Forest. Obviously, Ange hasn't got off to the best of starts. It's fair to say, but nonetheless, that transition from Nuno ball to Ange ball is always going to be difficult. What do you think Nottingham Forest can achieve now that the dust is starting to settle? Do you think they could go on another European, charge in the league? Not talking about how they do in Europe, but do you think they could finish in the top 8 again this season and have another European adventure next season off the back of their league position?
It, that has to be the aim, and a couple of results would fly them straight right up the table, and you'd say it's an obvious answer. But until they get those, at least the first result under Ange on the board, I think it's going to be difficult. I think they are in a transition of styles, which, as we said before, it does look like it's coming along nicely. They just need to get a couple of results on the board, and once they do, I think they will start rocking and rolling. They have to start aiming for Europe because, with the money that they've spent, they need to ensure that that level of income is there for the next few years. Especially the Forest fans, they want to see them back in Europe regularly as well, don't they? So I do think they need to aim for that. Whether or not they'll achieve it this year due to the changes that have happened mid-season, I don't know. But I do see them winning this game. I've gone for Forest 2, Sunderland 1. I think they will get the first win. I was encouraged by the 15 minutes that I saw. I think Douglas Luiz in midfield looks a good fit for the style of play they're trying to achieve. So yeah, I've gone for them beating Sunderland 2-1, home advantage to make the difference.
Yeah, as you said, Nottingham Forest have got some very good players now. You mentioned Douglas Luiz, you mentioned Elliot Anderson earlier. Obviously, Morgan Gibbs White, who doesn't look like he's recovered from the lack of transfer over the summer yet, but again, a very good player. They've got some pace on the wing. The new centre forward looks lively. But there's something about the Sunderland team, isn't there, that actually, they've only lost once this season. They don't seem to be scared of the Premier League football. They've come at it with a really refreshing attitude and mindset, haven't they? So I'm actually going for a draw in this game. Because I just think that again, if I'm looking for actually what my safest bet would be, it would be both teams to score. Nottingham Forest are definitely not going to be as defensively minded as they were last season. So I'm going to go for an entertaining 2-2, which would put Sunderland on 9 points after 6 games. And again, going back to our point, is if they did manage to beat Nottingham Forest, they're going to be in the Champions League place by the end of the day, probably. And so they're doing amazing bits and pieces. But for me, this would be a draw because I think Nottingham Forest are starting to get. The one thing I will say is that Murillo went off injured just last night. If you take him out of that defence, Willie Bowley came on to replace him. That's a massive drop down. So actually, you could see some of that European football. And again, by the way, Ange Postecoglou and centre backs have a bit of a history of injuries, right? So that could be a theme for Nottingham Forest this season. So I hope I'm wrong, and I hope it doesn't happen. But so for those reasons, I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw.
Yeah, I think this I think be a good game, and I could definitely see Sunderland nicking something. I've just gone for home advantage, and the levels of performance seem to be improving from the attacking sense. So that's why I've gone for the Forest win.
I don't like the 8 o'clock kickoff on a Saturday. I've got to be honest with you. I still don't like it. I don't think it's necessary, but it is what it is, right? So,
I like it.
yeah,
Well, I like it in just purely because the kids are in bed. They get the opportunity to sit down and watch a game. When probably 3 o'clocks and stuff and early kicks, I don't get to do that. So it's more of my opportunity to watch the game. So I do like them for that sense. But I mean, imagine if you're a away fan and some of the journeys for late kickoff and then getting back, it must be horrendous.
yeah. Well, I think this could be a dull game, actually. Tottenham host Wolverhampton Wanderers. Now, this is the true test for me of the new era under Thomas Frank. And I'll tell you for why. Under previous managers, I would be going all in on a Wolverhampton Wanderers win because Dr. Tottenham provides your first win of the season. They did it twice last season. Crystal Palace and Ipswich both hadn't won a game in ages. Play Tottenham and win their first game of the season. If Thomas Frank is serious about being different in terms of that defensive structure and still playing attacking football, Tottenham just have to win this game to show the different cut from previous seasons.
Agreed entirely. I think one the bigger than 1 to 2, like 1 to 2.5. I think is a shocking. But when you look at the results and the league table and stuff, it's about right. The prices, but like you've mentioned before, Spurs do have a habit of gifting teams wins or points in situations that they shouldn't do. But I wouldn't be touching 1 to 2 in an accumulator. You know, I've got Spurs 3, Wolves nil, but I'm not putting them in an accumulator. Like I do think that they've got more than enough about this team. I think defensively they've looked rock solid. Um, I've been shoveling Spurs defenders into my fantasy. I think that they look rock solid at the back. I think that's one thing he's improved massively. Um, so yeah, I can see this being a very comfortable 3-0, but I wouldn't be putting them in my £5 challenge because Dr. Tottenham could come into play.
Yeah, all of the above. What's interesting is the narrative, right, around Spurs is that if you look at their injury list, Kulusevski, Maddison, Dragusin, Take, Basuma, Solanke, Kolo Muani, and Ben Davies are all out injured. Yet no one's talking about the injuries at Spurs. There's 9 arguably first team players that are missing, and they've still got that Spurs squad is a lot stronger than some people. I know that, by the way, Basuma is they want him out, and some of those players aren't. Tak hasn't played yet in the first, but to have 9 potential first team players out for them to be doing what they're doing. João Palhinha looks like a phenomenal piece of business. They are lacking in the centre forward and the left wing position, and I do think that Jed Spence, although defensively is very good at left back, going forward is an absolute car crash. And it stodges the play up left, right, and centre. But I do feel that under Thomas Frank, now, like I say, last season I'd be going in on Wolverhampton Wanderers. I don't think it'll be 3-0. Spurs don't score 3 goals in the Premier League for the rest of the season, in my opinion, currently. I think this is going to be much more of a 1-0, 2-0 kind of affair. And so I'll give Spurs the benefit of the doubt and go 2-0. But it wouldn't surprise me if it was 1-0.
Yeah, I just think, like you've said, the difference between last season and Ange in the injuries was a lot of the injuries seemed to come in the same position, didn't they? So therefore, sort of Archie Gray was having to shuffle in at centre half. So it seemed to just be a bit more profound because there was lots of numerous injuries in the same position. I agree with what you've just said, though. This season, though, the squad is so much more well-rounded. Like you reeled off all those injuries. They all seem to be dotted all over the pitch. Striker, 10, Kulusevski, right winger. And there's more than enough backup in all of those positions. So therefore, the 11 doesn't look particularly weaker if you were to slot a few of them in and out. So even though, like you'd say, Kolo Muani and Richarlison, you'd probably say Kolo Muani's a better player, but Richarlison's doing the job up there. He's scoring goals. He's holding the ball up. And the same with the wingers coming in for Kulusevski. You got Xavi Simmons coming in, who's we don't know if he's of the same level of Maddison. We've not really seen enough of him, but on paper, very similar players. So I think that's probably why the noise isn't there. But I think when you're right, when you look at that squad, it is a very strong squad that Spurs have got.
Just maybe not quite with those little bits of magic dust that they've had in the past. They're possibly lacking a superstar, aren't they? Obviously, Harry Kane, Heung-min Son were 2 obviously Premier League icons, but like you say, in terms of general quality, they've got a whole bunch of 7 out of 10 players that you get, whether it's Brennan Johnson or Matthias Tell or Odebear or Kudos or Kudos, like loads of 7s but no 9s. Whereas actually they've probably had in the past a couple of 3s and a couple of 9s. So actually, like you say, I think Spurs are going to be. You've alluded to already, defensively sound. They're not going to be as definitely not going to be as exciting as under Ange Ball. But again, let's give Thomas Frank maybe a couple of windows because actually they missed out on Savinho or that left winger they were so desperate for. And I think if they'd have got that, they would look a little bit better going forward. But a good start nonetheless. And of course, on the other hand, I think we can all say that Wolverhampton Wanderers, unless something dramatic happens, are already in big, big trouble. You
For
move.
me, so just to add on, for me, they're down.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, like, I don't even think it's worth it. Like they look that bad. I can see their assets being sold in January as well. Like for me, they're down.
it wouldn't surprise me. I don't disagree with any of that. I mean, but the only thing I'd argue is that who are their assets, but that's maybe being facetious and not.
Just the forward, Strand Larson. There was
Yeah,
lots of teams in for him. I think he'll be off in January, and that'll be completely sealed.
Yeah, don't disagree. Can't argue with you there, mate. Aston Villa host Fulham. Sunday we move to 2 o'clock at Villa Park. Aston Villa in absolute desperate need of some points, some goals, some luck, something. They've had some back of house changes in Monchi leaving this week. It just feels like it's bad. And I'm not saying that it's a good or a bad thing, by the way. But it feels like it's bad news story after bad news story. This is an absolute must win for Aston Villa, isn't it?
It absolutely is. Home game against a team that you would have thought would have been in and around the same position, probably Villa finishing higher than them. But I was going to say, let's whisper it quietly. I think we're well past that point. Are Villa in a relegation battle? Because they've got the hallmarks of the Leicester City team 23-24, where they were saying Leicester were far too good to go down. You look at the squad with some of the players, they've got a very striking resemblance to me of the way that they were playing. Lethargic, not scoring goals, leaking goals right left and centre. The manager constantly moaning about the transfer window and not feeling the same as what they used to. Like the interviews that Brendan Rodgers back in the day compared to what Unai Emery have had, eerily similar, moaning about the club and a lack of transfer funds and rotating the squad. Key players in Morgan Rogers not performing. Yuri Tielemans, funny enough, was in both of those squads. I think there's some very eerily massive similarities between those two teams, and most people said Leicester were far too good to go down, and they did. Villa are not too good to go down.
No, but I don't think they will. So I suppose in a way I'm saying that they are too good to go down, but I'm not saying that. I just think that again what they've done is I feel like they've made lots of changes without actually making their 11 any better. And I think that we've all got a little bit guilty of this in terms of the fans. Everybody's always chasing the next shiny signing rather than going, actually, we're doing all right. And you kind of look at that team and you kind of think, well, Ollie Watkins has fallen off a cliff. I don't know when his next goal is coming. Q's first minute on Sunday. Buendia's not really a left winger. Morgan Rogers, again, people were flirting with him over the summer. Is his head being turned? Is he in it? McGinn's getting older. Kamara, like I don't know. You look at that 11, you think on paper it should be doing okay, and then you look at the bench, and I think actually for me, Lindelof, Elliot, Torres, Marlon, Sancho, Matson, like they're all Premier League players, but again, none of them are people you want to hang out when you're up against it. I don't want to be putting Jaden Sancho on when I need a miracle to stay in the game or win the game. Do you know what I mean? Like he's not in the trenches with you, is he?
No, and I've mentioned him already. Yuri Tielemans,
With
literally
injuries.
was in
Yeah.
the team. Yeah, you don't want him in the trenches. He's a lovely footballer. When you're dominating games, when Leicester were good, was one of the best players in the Leicester 11. The same with Villa for the past 2 years. He's been one of the best players. He dictates the game. But when you're in the trenches, he's one of the last people you will need on the pitch. And I look at that squad, and I think they've got a lot, like you've just said, a lot of them where you go. So Tyrone Mings still to be starting. They were there 3 or 4 years ago, and it looked like they'd moved on with your Pau Torres, your Diego Carlos's. Carlos is out the door, I think. Your Pau Torres is on the bench. Like they seem to be moving forward, gradually improving the 11. And you're right, like I said, you mentioned Buendia. He'd been unheard of for 2 or 3 years.
Oh.
He wasn't in the squad at all, was he? They got to a level where he was almost cast aside, didn't need him. He's back in the squad. Like I just think the business that they've done there stinks, and I agree. I don't expect them to go down, but I didn't expect Leicester to go down.
No, yeah, absolutely. I think it's a bit. If I'm honest with you, my gut feeling is it's a bit early to be talking about Villa as a relegation. Again, if they win, if they win at the weekend, obviously that's going to shoot them up, albeit not from a points point of view because there's only 3 points available, but it would jump them up to 6 points, which could see them, go as high as 14th, and whoever they've got next week. And to be fair, I should know that, but I don't off the top of my head. All of a sudden they're on 9 points and they're out of the mix. And I think unfortunately for Aston Villa, it's going to be a very meh kind of season. I don't see them going down, but I don't see them challenging for Europe. And actually, I think they've got a lot of work to do behind the scenes to get themselves back in the mix.
Do you know what though? I mean, I'm trying to look at some of the fixture. I don't think Villa have had a hard start to the season fixture wise, and they've pretty much fluffed the lines. So I mean, they've obviously got Fulham, which I'll tell you now, I've gone 1-0 Fulham, so I see them
Okay.
losing the game. After that, they've got Burnley, which would then become a huge game. That's an absolute must win. Burnley at home, but after that, they've got Spurs, Man City, Liverpool.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I mean, these next two games, Fulham at home, Burnley at home, are massive. If they pick up 0 points in them or 1 point to then go to the next three with must-win games against those sides.
Yeah, the problem Aston Villa have is clear: 5 games, 1 goal. Right, they've scored 1 goal in 5 games. You can dress this up. We could talk for another 15 hours on it. Ultimately, they're just not scoring enough goals, and they've actually done well to get 3 points off of 1 goal. If we're being honest, right? Because actually, to get 3 draws this season, having scored 1 goal, is impressive. So actually, they're not a million miles away, but obviously conceding 5 goals is, so maybe the bet here is under 2.5. Because Fulham, although they gave Brentford a bit of a lesson last week, don't strike me as being a team that are going to kind of go and beat them by 3 or 4. And again, are averaging a goal, just over a goal a game themselves. So again, if I was looking for my favourite bet of this one, it'd be under 2.5. And I have gone for a draw. So I think that this could be a low scoring draw, and I'm going to go 0-0. I wasn't going to, but I've talked myself into a 0-0.
Yeah, so I've gone Fulham to nick it. I think at the minute they're probably just a more well-rounded team. Again, the manager's been there a while, hasn't he? They know exactly what they're doing. They remind me of a Bournemouth, a Brentford when Thomas Frank were there. They just know the system, know the formation. Haven't particularly had lots of ins and outs. The same players performing week in week out. So I just think that Fulham could nick it 1-0. And if they do, by the way, again results go their way. 11 points could be second.
It's crazy, isn't it? But again, it's very early still. Although the season feels like it should be further down the line. Anyway, that's maybe an international breaks are the problem. We'll move on. I had a thought. Sorry, just quickly on this one, is that to have the international break before the season starts, whilst the transfer window is still open, so teams aren't playing league games whilst the transfer window is still open, playing international games rather than playing 3 games, then having a week off and then 5 games in a week off. If you played a bigger bunch of international games in that last couple of weeks of August, when the transfer window is still open, might that be a better way of solving 2 problems with one stone?
I think so. I like that idea. I think the one argument would be you'd be extending the season. You could do it both ways. You'd be extending the season. The only thing that you can say about it is, though, give a chunk in the middle to actually have a proper break like the other foreign nations do, where they have a winter break. Have a one week, 10-day break in a
But
period of December that allows them to have a bit more of a break.
no, so sorry, because there's an international break in September, there's an international break in October, which is a week of no, Premier League. If you just chuck them two together, stick them before the season starts, and so actually England don't play 2 games before this, they play 4 games over those 2 weeks, whilst the transfer window is still open. And then once the season starts, there is no international break in September, October. They play through, so actually it's no longer. It's just in a different order.
Yeah,
Uh,
submit it. fainquiries.com. I've got no idea if that's right, by the way. Don't do that.
we know someone that works at the FA. We go direct to the man. Don't worry about it. We've got a contact in the FA. Anyway, you do remember if we've got a contact in the FA, right?
I was just going to say, do you know Big Tommy Tuchel?
It's not quite that high. A couple of levels down from there. Newcastle United. Did you give the score for that one? You did, didn't you?
Yeah, I
Uh,
give Fulham to win
sorry,
1-0.
sorry, mate. Newcastle United. This could be a really interesting game stylistically as well, although historically not maybe many goals. But Newcastle United host Arsenal 4:30 kickoff Sunday afternoon. I'll be looking forward to sitting down, tucking into some grub whilst watching that one. Newcastle aren't firing all cylinders. Arsenal are picking up points and results without setting the world light. Is there a risk that this game is a little bit like last Sunday's game with Arsenal, where actually it becomes a bit attritional, a little bit kind of long ball direct, and it's kind of whoever scores first is probably going to win?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'll give you my prediction. I've gone for Newcastle 0, Arsenal 1. I
Yeah.
think this game will fall into the hands of Arsenal quite nicely. With Isak has been a thorn in their side of recent years, pace, power, and he's sort of roughed up the defenders. I think Voltemar is a very different style of forward, and I think he just sort of plays into the hands of Gabriel and Saliba, going sort of up against them as a big number 9 with strength, not particularly pacey. I think they'll deal with that pretty easily. And I said Isak's been the one that's caused them problems down the years. So I think this does just fall into Arsenal's game plan of be solid defensively, get your attacking players on the ball. Saka was back, which is huge for them. I thought he made such a difference when he came on. I thought Madueke was the best player in the first half, but I think you just seen the level difference change when Saka came on. Martinelli obviously scored a good goal. I can see him coming in and causing them problems. So I just think it plays into their hands. 1-0 to the Arsenal.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, Newcastle played five, scored three, conceded three. Tells you all about kind of who Newcastle are now. They're defensively sound, but attacking missing some pieces. Obviously, Voldemort needs to come back. Visser's still injured. He's not back for the weekend. And I think if you can get those two kind of pumped up, you've got a chance. But again, you're not going to, I don't think, turn your goal scoring sort of ventures around against Arsenal. Have only conceded 2 in 5. Very, very robust, very, very strong at the back. Again, it doesn't seem to, but they've got more defenders than you can shake a stick at. Like, literally, Ben White's not in the team, Hincape's not in the team, and they've still got absolutely oodles of centre back. So, uh, again, for me, as much as I hope this is what like those games that I've seen to remember from a couple of years ago that were Newcastle bullying Arsenal, and they were great games, not because of that, but as in entertainment, they were fantastic. I think this could be quite attritional, and I'm going to go. Do you know what? Let's open it up in the hope that it's slightly more exciting than Arsenal 1, Newcastle. I'm going to go Newcastle 1, Arsenal 2, but I think you're probably right, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if it finishes 0-0.
Yeah, no, yeah, agreed. Yeah, again. But it also wouldn't surprise me Newcastle 1-1-0. Like, I do rate Newcastle very highly. I know they're missing some bits and pieces, but
I really like that Newcastle team. They still get stick, don't they, for being a bit of cloggers and snapping people here, there, and everywhere. But I really like the way they do it. It just seems to me that when they're in Europe, those performances are saved for Europe, where they're pressing the hell out of teams. I watched them play at Barca, and I thought Newcastle were really good. Like, they lost the game, but I thought they were really good. But then it just doesn't get replicated in the Premier League. Like, it does seem to be a very different style that they implement. Which I think if they did that to Arsenal, I could see them beating them, roughing them up, bullying them a bit. But you don't see those performances after Europe, really. So yeah, it plays into the hands. Arteta going back to his roots of defensive style of football and nicking a goal here and there. Probably a set piece.
what one to keep an eye on is that last week of those teams that played in the Champions League, of which there was 6, Liverpool were the only ones that won a game after the Champions League week, just for reference. So again, might be worth bearing in mind when we look at predictions, seeing who's come off the back of a European game. So obviously, we've got some more this weekend. It'll be interesting to see if the Europe is having an impact on their league form. Uh, Monday night football is back, which I'm very happy about. So to have Saturday night football at 8 o'clock and Monday night football at 8 o'clock feels a little bit unusual. But again, this is actually, I think, quite an interesting kind of matchup at Everton. I was going to say Goodison Park. Then that would have got me fired immediately. Uh, Everton in a new stadium host West Ham United, who you got to say, if they lose this, can I go bold and say that I guarantee if they lose this, Graham Potter is done.
Well, all of the noise on social media. I don't know if you've seen a lot of the West Ham fans have been taking Graham Potter's face and putting little memes in. So he's been ridiculed. So, I mean, when you get to that point, you're on the brink, aren't you? So, I mean, I can see Everton winning this game. I've gone 2-1 at the Bramley Apple Stadium, whatever it's called. I've gone 2-1 to Everton. I think they've looked decent, Everton. I think they're still yet to hit another level, which I think they can do. When I look at that West Ham squad, I really fear for them. I do. He said they've got one win, and I look at that and go, "How on earth did you win that game?" It was against Forest, wasn't it? And I go, "How did you win that game?" It was
3-0 as well, yeah.
yeah, and I think without that, they'd be sitting on. You can say that against any result, but they'd be sitting on 0 points, getting tanked most weeks. And again, I think this is quite nicely set up for Everton because West Ham are going to have to go for it.
So yeah, I don't disagree. But what I would say is that West Ham have conceded more goals than Wolverhampton Wanderers. They've conceded 13 goals in 5 games. That is fundamentally your problem. They've scored more goals than many teams, or certainly a few teams. They've scored more goals than Newcastle, than Leeds, who are much higher than them. Literally causing their own problems with their defensive shape or lack of. So yeah, but I also agree with you. I like where Everton are going. I like what Everton are doing. I think this could be quite a comfortable home win. I don't see anything but an Everton win, and for that reason, just to tie it in, they're going to be my banker of the week. And I'm going to go Everton 2. By the way, Everton are nearly evens. They're 3-4, which is a crazy price for me. I'm going to go Everton 2, West Ham 0.
Lovely. Let's put them together. So I've got so on Bet365, Everton are 4-5. So our double of Bournemouth and Everton, if you put a tenner on, it pays back £44.95.
Okay. Very nicely done too. Okay, so predictions done. Out of all of that, what is your £5 challenge?
My £5 challenge is Bournemouth. I said I weren't going to put them in. I have put them in. Spurs, Arsenal, and Everton. I think I've put them in just because after when I looked at my scores and they were 3-0. But I don't know why I've done that, if I'm being honest. But Bournemouth, Spurs, Arsenal, Everton.
So mine's not massively different, which is interesting. So I've gone for Liverpool, just because the odds are too close to evens for me. Anytime you can get Liverpool near even.
Tempting, that isn't it?
Uh, Bournemouth, again, away team at those odds based on where they are. Arsenal and Everton, all of those teams are pretty much even. So £5 returns nearly £82, £81.59 from a £5 bet. I think is good value. Of course, it's good value if it comes in. It's terrible value if they don't, but nonetheless, uh, very similar this week. So we'll probably both be chirping next week, or both be crying into our supper.
Yeah, especially if Spurs let me down after I've declared on the results I will not put them in my challenge, and then all of a sudden they're there.
Yeah. Again, yeah, I'll let you be the judge of that. Like I say, that for me just has, like I say, Dr. Tottenham written all over it. But I'm sure the Spurs fans will hope that they can continue their form. Uh, as always, Fran, really enjoyed that. Thank you for your time. Glad that you're feeling better and sounding better. In the meantime, where can people reach out and find us, hurl abuse, like our comments, like our numbers or not, whatever they want to do with it?
Yeah, so we're on social media. So we're on Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. And then to listen to the episodes, we're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Just search for The Atmosphere is Electric.
Amazing, buddy. As always, thank you very much for your time. I look forward to catching up with you next week. Have a good one.